Poor Mona doesn't have a frame yet, so she's still just a sad poster sitting on the wall. So I was supposed to finish this book in December, and I had a joke like written out for it, and I didn't get a chance to use it. So if you don't mind, I'm still gonna use it. I didn't finish NaNoWriMo how I wanted, but decided to do December-Rimo, which sounds like some kind of Christmas dinosaur. I don't know if that joke is worth saving or not, but that's how we're starting this video. Hi guys, it has been so long. I think this is officially the longest I've gone without a video, but I had a very good reason, and that's because I was actually writing. Who does that? What author tuber does that? I'm throwing shade at myself with that, by the way, not anybody else, in case anyone's wondering. That's a self-shade right there. As you can see by the title of this video, I'm here to talk all about how I finally wrote and finished, well, my draft anyway, of a book during this global pandemic. I definitely had moments I didn't think it was gonna be possible, but actually that's not true. I knew I would finish. I just questioned how difficult it was going to be, and let me tell you, it was a journey, as you are about to see. And so, sit down. This is gonna be a long one, as you can see from the length below. I know I just wrote like 66,000 words or more, I don't even know, but I got some more in me. We're gonna talk. I'm gonna probably divide this video into two parts, just because if it was one, it would be impossibly long. I'm gonna do some chatting to fill in the gaps, because I kind of picked up my camera to vlog very sporadically. Because like I said, I wanted to really just focus on my writing, not have my vlogging or my channel be a distraction. Editing is gonna be a journey for me, but that's okay. So in case anybody is joining me for the first time, hi, my name is Haley. I am a writer, I guess. I haven't published a piece of fiction yet. I used to be a journalist, so I do have like articles written if you want to get technical on if I'm published or not. But I am trying to break myself into the world of publishing, specifically traditional publishing ideally, and one of the ways I am choosing to do that is I am in a master's program for creative writing and literature, and I am working on my thesis. I'm at the very end of my program, and so that's what this book is. It is my thesis. And I guess I'll just start from the beginning. So this time last year, well, first of all, I was on my honeymoon, so that's where I was. But I also was getting ready to start my thesis for my master's program, and that whole thing was kind of confusing. If you watch my vlogs over the summer, you know the headache that was registering for my thesis. So with my program for your thesis, you can choose to do more traditional thesis, so discussing a piece of literature, discussing an idea, blah, 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 or you can do a piece of creative fiction, which I had zero interest in writing like a huge essay. No thanks. And so I was like, oh my God, this is great. Like, I can just write my book. That's gonna be my thesis, is to write. I had it be a finished draft of my book. That's hilarious. It amended to a completed draft of my book. I do have a first draft. That is what this is. I finished my first draft way back in 2017, but that was before I had started my master's program, and I realized as I learned more about writing and as I delved more myself into wanting to be a writer and practicing my writing, that this thing is kind of trash. I mean, it's my baby. Like, it's my firstborn. I love it. I will forever be grateful that I did it and finished it. I have no regrets with how I did it. However, it is not going to ever see the light of day. And so I knew with my second draft, I basically was gonna have to start from scratch, which is what I ended up doing. I started completely from the beginning. There is nothing except for a couple character names, and even many of the names changed from my first draft, or I guess they call it a zero draft maybe? I'm not really sure. But there is nothing in the draft I just finished. Like, I rewrote the entire thing during this pandemic. Well, during my program. But so to start, my thesis, woo, that really lit up my face. Oh my gosh, that's just white paper. That's why photographers use that white thing. I'm just reflecting this on the sun. Wow. crazy. But so over the summer, I did officially get registered to start. And so I was supposed to do that in July. Did I start in July? No. First of all, I had a lot of trouble with writing during this time. I actually made a whole video on it back in, I think it was either March or April, and that lack of motivation, lack of drive to write during our globe's most trying times in the last 100 years continued until really I started my summer program, which kind of got me back into the habit of writing and just working through the stress and anxiety. And even then though, I finished the program and didn't write. I just didn't. I don't have a valid excuse, to be honest with you. But October of 2020 is when I was like, okay, I have my first deadline coming up. I was supposed to have half of my draft finished by October 31st. That was a self deadline I had set. And I was nowhere near that. And so I actually have a vlog of me writing that first half. It wasn't really half, it ended up being like maybe the first quarter of the book. I did during NaNoWriMo. You can go watch that. And I was feeling pretty good about it. I had way underestimated how long it was going to take me to re-outline, because essentially one of the things I discovered during the last couple of years of my program is that this book was trying to do way too much, and I had to basically cut it. It's gonna end up being, as it stands right now, a trilogy. And so I was taking this and dividing it into 3, and you can't really do that with a book. Like, you can't just take a really long book, cut it into 3 parts, and just publish 3 separate books, because each book needs to tell its own story. It needs to have its own climax. It needs to have its own resolution in its own way. And so I knew I needed to re-outline. I did not understand at the time, at the start of my thesis, just how heavy that was going to need to be. So really all of fall, that's what I was doing. I was brainstorming, I was watching a lot of master classes, I was reading books about writing, and I was trying to discover character motivations, character arcs. I made pretty good progress with that. I would say I did more in the last couple months, but I got a good start, and I was considering my book as a finished, like something I was gonna finish for the first time in like 2 or 3 years. Like, up until then, I've been working on my story, don't get me wrong. Like, a lot of, I mean, that's what my whole author my author journal vlogs have been about, is me working on my story. But I was doing it in classes, and so like I was focusing on certain elements in certain chapters, doing certain things with certain scenes. Like, sometimes I was taking a class on suspense, sometimes I was taking a class on writing for YA. And so the chapters that I wrote, they were good, but I was never really focusing too hard on the bigger picture. I hadn't sat down and thought about what my outline, like what the ending was gonna be in like 3 years. I hadn't considered it. So I had to do that for the first time this fall. After NaNoWriMo was over, and after we rang in the new year, basically the last time I uploaded a video, my thesis advisor and I, thesis director advisor, I keep mixing up the terms, but you know how I mean. We sat down and we decided on the next deadline. So I meet with my thesis director in 40 minutes. And for the first time, I feel really nervous. I've never really felt nervous before a feedback session before, but I feel really nervous about this one. And I think that's just because of where I last left off with my writing. I think I really made the mistake of not jumping back in after I had a bad writing session. I know, like, I remember in track, if you're jumping one of the hurdles and you trip, like your foot gets caught, you're supposed to jump a hurdle again, so that your last memory of jumping hurdles wasn't a bad experience and then you don't get afraid. It's just like a mental thing. And I think that's why I went wrong. I didn't write again afterwards. And now I'm like, I don't know, I just almost feel like nauseous about it. Like I ended on such a low note with what was such a high week of writing, and it's just left me really terrified. Not terrified, that's an extreme word, but I don't know. I'll let you know how it goes. Just finished, and oh my gosh, I take back every worry I had because it was actually amazing. And I realized, you know what it was that I was not looking forward to? I feel like I didn't feel ready to jump back into it. Is that crazy? But it went so well. You know, obviously she had a lot of really great tips and ways to move forward, but just, she asked so many good questions, which was so fun. It's like, normally when we talk about, like I have a workshop and I talk about my story, it's very much sort of like looking at what's currently on the page and what I can do to improve what I currently have. But she was asking me questions about the future and like asking me questions about my characters, asking me questions about what happens next and where I envision certain characters going. And that was just a really good like brainstorming session on character, because I think that, again, that's like the purpose of this rewrite in my mind is working on the characters. And so that was it was really fun. So I do feel better, and I'm so excited for winter break. So I had the first deadline. I was supposed to turn the first half at the end of October. Literally didn't happen. I ended up turning in the first quarter. I think it was like mid-November, and then I turned in the second half, or the first like half-ish, when did I turn that in? Was it end of November? Start of December? I can't remember. I had another moment where I turned in some more chapters, and then we decided, okay, for this next part, I'm just gonna finish and I'm gonna turn in January 31st. That is my new deadline. That's when I'm gonna finish this book by, January 31st. Come hell or high water, it's gonna be done. Spoiler, it was not. So of course, naturally with that new deadline in mind, on New Year's Day, I set out to finish my book with a renewed sense of motivation and excitement, right? No, of course I didn't. I'm me, of course I didn't. Okay, many minutes later, it's up with a few holes in the back. Thank you for your help, short little man. I'm saying that because you're in a short seat, not because you're short. No thanks to you. All he did was cry and play with the nails when they would fall down, didn't you? Didn't you? Oh, you purred, you. Well, purr again. I think I need a mic though, because I realize I mumble all the time because I'm always whispering. But I just don't know if I would even use it or know how to use it. Anyway, I turned on the camera to say I just finished my read through before I dive into my attempt of 2,000 words per day in January. And I'm not, don't worry, I'm not going to rewrite the beginning. I've agreed with my thesis director that I will not be doing that until I finish the book itself. It's creepy seeing the back of my head. Is that even my head? I don't know what that is. I don't want to look. I'm a little disheartened only because some of the writing felt amateurish to me. I don't know if I've just been reading more mature books lately and that's why. I don't know. And I totally agree that the three main characters, you cannot distinguish their voice from one another just based on the dialogue. So I have to fix that. Because even though in my head they're very different, it's not translating. My thesis advisor, she brought up the good point that, you know, in real life, a lot of times when you hang out with the same people, you do start to talk like one another. Because I guess in my head, that's kind of just how I picture them talking to each other. But on a book, it doesn't really translate as well because it just makes them indistinguishable from one another, and that's obviously a problem. Because in a book, you don't have a visual cue of what someone looks like. You just are reading about it. Yeah, like I said, I'm just a little discouraged. It's my first time really reading through what I had turned in. And I think in my head, I had thought that it was better. Oh, that's sad to say. Some parts are really good and some parts I'm really nailing the tone. And then some of the newer stuff is just not good. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's, I don't know. I kind of just like the older stuff and it makes me feel insecure. It's like, am I getting worse as a writer? I don't know. I feel like I'm just not reading the right books right now or something. I don't know, something I gotta work out this month. You know, I've never done it before, so I don't want to say that that's the easy part, but I'm not so much worried about writing 2,000 words a day this month. I'm worried about writing 2,000 good words a day. And they don't have to be perfect, but I don't want to look back at the full 2,000 words I've written every day and just be like, I don't like it. So, we gotta fix that. I was really stuck in my tracks, like I said, not knowing where this book was going. I had been having a lot of fun focusing more on like the tone and the characters, and I was really terrified to outline too heavily because that's kind of where I went wrong in this thing. I had outlined this extremely well, too well, and the whole story was so plot driven, and the characters themselves, they were almost like being dragged through the story. They weren't actively like making choices, and you know, I wasn't experimenting with like directions I could take them. I was just following this, and it reads just very clunky and just linear, and I just knew that was a problem I wanted to fix in my second draft. And so I was kind of terrified that if I outlined it too heavily, I was gonna fall into those same habits. And because I had found, like in my classes, like I said, I was kind of just doing random chapters, I was trying new things, and I discovered a lot of things that I don't think I would have discovered or enjoyed if I had outlined it. Like you know, random prompts or something, like write a scene in a waiting room, write a scene in this, and I found that I really enjoyed some of those scenes I had written that I never would have even thought to do if I hadn't kind of gone outside the box. But I was running out of time, and I realized if I was gonna finish this thing, I needed to know where it was going. And so I spent pretty much the first half of January really committed to figuring out a lot of the problems I was having. Quick check-in. So, I'm currently reading this bad boy, and it's very good. I do like it, though I've only read a tiny bit so far. But it just made me realize, so I'm structuring my plot, I'm re-going over my outline, making sure it's gonna flow good so that when I sit down to really crank out the words, they're the words I wanna use. Like, what happens is what I want to happen. And you know what my problem is? I realized, and I feel like authors don't talk about this, but there's just, it's not that I don't have ideas of what to do next, it's that I have so many ideas of what I could do, and each option leads to so many different other options and changes the whole story. And it's like, how in the world do you pick which one you want to do? Like, I don't know which one's best. Like, all of them are good options. I just don't know. And so that's kind of where I'm stuck. It's like, I could do this or I could do this, and if I do this, this would happen. If I do this, this would happen, and I don't know which one's better. Which one's better? And then like, you just think of a million trillion different options, and how do authors decide? Like, how do you decide? Because if there's one thing I'm learning, it's that your first thought isn't always the best one. Because like, I've had ideas. Like I said, my book has changed so much from what it was, and what happens is so different, and I'm always getting different things I could do and different thoughts and ideas. So my first thought isn't always the best one. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I think time's up, so I just have to decide. I guess that's what it does, is you just have to pick one, and you do that. I was having a lot of problems with distinguishing my characters from one another. Whenever I turn on this camera and see how I look, I'm like, yikes. One of the problems I'm having with this draft is I have 3 really close friends who grew up together, and in my experience in real life, and maybe this just means me and my friends are super unoriginal, which is fair criticism, but because we grew up and spent so much time together, I swear you could write down what each of us is saying individually, without context, and I could not tell you who said what. Like, we make the same jokes. We have the same like way of speaking. I'm drinking wine, sorry. That's why my teeth are purple. Honest to God, like same with me and my husband right now. We spend so much time together this 2020, 2021 that probably, like we realize we make the same jokes now and we sound the same and have the same response to things. And so it's hard for me, somebody who I like to try and write my dialogue as realistic as possible, to make them sound different. And that was one of the feedbacks I got from my thesis director, is that this group of friends, they don't sound different enough from each other. And honestly, I've gotten this feedback from the very beginning, and it's so hard for me to break that. But I think it's one of those like rules of writing, kind of like how with writing, when you're writing dialogue too, you don't put in like all the ums and uhs, and like you don't put in when they mess up how they're speaking, like if they stutter or whatever, unless that's like a specific moment. But you know what I'm saying? Like in real life, people don't talk that perfectly. And so I think one of the rules of writing is that you just have to exaggerate a little bit the characters' differences, because you don't have that visual cue. Like it's all written word, and so what they say is who they are, and what they do is who they are. And if they're so similar, then it's kind of hard to make the argument of why you have two separate characters if they're doing the exact same thing. So that's just one of those like rules of storytelling that I'm having a hard time with, just because I feel like it's not realistic. And I don't know, like this story that I'm writing is very much about friendship, and I feel like authentic friendship is becoming your friends and just melding into one person. Maybe that's just me and my codependency, but I just thought I would share. And just struggling with the tone I wanted to set for this story. This book was, the first draft I had done was a lot more serious and focused on like the action, whereas I now, after reflecting on the story and thinking about it more, I wanted it to be more of a book that you just like fall into and that feels cozy, like, you know, just like one of those, like what you love about your favorite YA novels that you grew up reading. I wanted that for my book, and as it stood, that was not the kind of book that it was. And so I really focused on, in the beginning, wanting to set that same tone that just felt like home. And so one of the ways I did that, I cheated, and I was like, I want the story to feel like home. Okay, I'm changing the setting completely, and I'm just putting it in my hometown. And that's what I did. Is it cheating? 100%, but I did it. I also really needed to focus on, like I said, character building and character motivation. Happy Inauguration Day! Excuse my extremely shiny face. I just put on face lotion, so it's still drying. Wearing pink for my girl Kamala, but it's very exciting. Got the news on in the background. Anyway. Focus, focus, focus. One thing I've been really struggling with in my story, and I think I've talked about this before, but it's finding my main, I totally blanked on there, antagonist motive. And apart from just motive, I had the realization last night while I was in bed, couldn't sleep, thinking about my story because I've been outlining late the night before. Sorry, I am so exhausted. One of my pet peeves, or things that I think is too easily overlooked in writing and just in novels in general or any kind of storytelling, is, does the antagonist's action make sense? Like, does it make the most sense? Because I feel like I've been really trying to put myself and actually spend time with each single character and ask myself, what would they do that would make the most sense? What would they do to get what they want in the easiest way possible? Because I firmly believe that we all try to get what we want in the easiest way possible. Like, why complicate it for ourselves if we don't have to? Because I was tripping because something my antagonist was doing, it just seemed, when you looked at it from her point of view, it was like overly complicated and wouldn't be the easiest way for her to achieve her goal. So I had to figure out that problem. And an example I like think about all the time, because I think that we're so busy focusing on the main character's motives and like their actions that we kind of forget to look at other characters' point of views. But for example, so I love the Harry Potter books. Not too happy with J.K. Rowling, that's besides the point. I think they all do a fairly good job in each character's actions making the most sense, but the big outlier that I can't get around is Goblet of Fire. Because the story is great. And I get why, you know, Harry is in the tournament, it's so fun, but when you think about it from the antagonist point of view, so either Voldemort or, I don't want to spoil it if you haven't read Harry Potter though. If you haven't read Harry Potter by now, I don't know what to tell you. But I'm just gonna say Voldemort's side man. I'll just say that because that's not really a spoiler. But like his helper in the book, so to speak, his surprise helper. When you think about their actions, the way that they go about the story. Okay, so this is gonna be a big spoiler, I'm sorry. If you haven't read Goblet of Fire, skip this entire, like, jump ahead a little bit. But, you know, the whole idea was, okay, we're gonna put Harry in the tournament, so then at the end of the tournament, he will touch the trophy and be transported to the cemetery where we need him to be. When you think about it from their point of view, that makes no sense why they would go through all of that trouble and draw all the attention on Harry when it was so unnecessary. You know what they could have done? Is Mad-Eye Moody, or Barty Crouch Jr. could have still been Mad-Eye Moody or whatever, and then the day that they needed Harry to be at the cemetery, he could just go like, yo Harry, come to my office, let's have some tea, and then the tea is like the teacup support key. Like, why did he have to enter the tournament? You mean to tell me they couldn't get Harry to touch a single object? Like, that was the only way they could do it, was touching the trophy? Like, no, that makes no sense. And all it did was like draw everybody's attention that something was going on. Like Dumbledore was like, that's suspicious. It makes absolutely no sense. And like Harry obviously was super trusting of Mad-Eye Moody. Like he could have done anything. Like he could have just been like, hey Harry, let's apparate somewhere, I have something to show you. And Harry been like, okay, because Harry's kind of dumb sometimes. Why go through that? So that's what I mean. Like, I don't want to have myself in a situation where my antagonist is doing something that when you actually think about it from their perspective is so overcomplicated, and they could have done something else so simple. I don't want a Goblet of Fire situation. I love that book, by the way. It's super entertaining, but you have to look past the glaring issue of why the heck did they do that? Like, why did the characters do that? If you know an answer, let me know, because I just can't figure out. Has anyone ever asked her? I haven't even looked it up, but anyway, so that's what I'm focusing on too with this draft is, does my antagonist actions make sense from their point of view? That's what I'm always double checking. The way my old outline worked had a lot of pacing and structure issues. When I first outlined my first draft, I had never taken a writing course. I took one writing course, but I had never taken that like extensive writing courses. I didn't know what the 3-act structure was. I didn't know, like, I mean, I knew what a climax was, but I didn't know about all that stuff that's supposed to come before it. And so the pacing was just, I mean, I naturally picked up some pacing just from being a heavy reader, but I didn't really apply it as well as I should have in my own outline. And so that's something I needed to do. And so I was really, like I said, the first couple weeks of January, that's when I really focused on the big picture stuff. I realize one of the reasons I'm struggling right now, I'm not even struggling, I'm getting through it, but I'm not having the most fun is because I'm still writing a lot of setup chapters and I'm just ready to get into the action. So I think this is gonna help with the pacing because I think it's a good indicator that it is time to start getting into it. And so that's finally happening now. I'm really excited. I think the biggest thing I'm worried about with this book, other than making sure my writing is up to snuff, that's not an expression. Is that an expression? Is it gonna be fun to read? Like, I don't know. I'm on chapter 9 and I don't know. That's my biggest concern. Is it any fun? Because I think it's fun to like discover everything, but I have no idea if it's fun to read. No clue. Guess that's what beta readers are for. As January got going, I started to develop a routine. It got so much easier once I had that writing routine down and stopped focusing so much on what it is I had to do next and like how much work was ahead of me, and really just weighing on that, and basically like got out of my own way and stopped groaning about the work I had to do, and I just did it. Which is a lesson I needed to learn in so many aspects of my life, but that writing this thesis really taught me the hard way. It is Monday, January 25th, and I feel like I should be panicking. I've got 6 days and like 50,000 words to do. I mean, I actually have no idea how many words I have to do because I don't know how long this thing is gonna be, but I am hoping to finish Act 1 tonight. So I'm not even done with Act 1. Almost done with Act 1, but not quite. And I feel like I should be panicking, but I'm just not. I've been waiting for that feeling to come. I'm not sad about it, but it's just strange because back in November when I had the first half due, I definitely felt panicky all the time. And maybe my panic meter is just done. After 2020, I'm just like, you know what, I'm good. My hair looks crazy. I have like the tiniest little clip. I just want to share, in case anyone's curious on my schedule it's literally wake up, write, work, write, work again, take a nap. Zach wakes me up, makes me dinner. I goof off for a bit, make myself a coffee, and then I come and write again. And that's what I've been doing. And I've been surviving on watching old Kim and Megan live word sprints on Facebook. So I feel like I'm not alone doing this. So let's get back to it. I'm having the craziest day where it's almost 2 o'clock and I've been super productive since I woke up. And it's like I don't even feel the drive to not be productive. Like I don't feel like going on Facebook or going on YouTube or anything like that. And it's just like, is this what motivation feels like? Nice of you to finally show up 4 days before my deadline. Thanks, motivation. But no, I'm very happy. I feel motivated. And I think I don't think the motivation is because my deadline's so close. I think it's because I've just been like working and finally it just feels good to be working. And I feel so offended because basically like all the advice people gave about writing every day is turning out to be true. And that your muse will show up if you tell it to. And I'm just offended. To get into the logistics of it too, just because I don't think I really talked about it, but I use Google Docs for all of this. Before I had used Word docs and like every chapter I would have a new document, but I found that to be really frustrating, especially when I was going kind of back and forth and like checking out past scenes and whatever and like jumping around, and I'd have to open up a new Word doc and I didn't know what chapter was on. And I found Google Docs was actually a really great way. I could just have all of my chapters, have them on an outline bar on the side. I can talk about maybe that in like a later video or something, if you want to figure out what I did. It's really simple. I don't use like Scrivener or anything, which I think is a great tool, but I just don't know how to use it, and I had zero time or interest in learning how to use it for this draft. But so Google Docs I found to be really nice, and plus I never had to worry about like losing my work because it was all saved and all my revisions were saved, and it was all like backed up on like the cloud, the internet. And so that was like a huge peace of mind. I never had to worry about like my laptop. If something happened to my laptop, my work would still be saved. I swear I'm not sponsored by Google. I wish I was. They probably pay really well. But I did really like Google Docs for that. Sometimes it was slow and that was frustrating, but I mean, that's technology in general. Where I struggled the most with writing was I would hit these walls with certain chapters. I would have low word count days then. Like every day, every single day, I would write something. But like there was like one chapter in particular, I can't remember what number it is, but oh my God, like it took me days to finish. I was trying to do like a chapter a day, and this one alone took me days, if not like a week or so. Starting to lose steam for the night for sure, but I have 3 chapters to go tonight and I have to finish this. I have a chapter coming up that I'm not looking forward to writing, only because it's the chapter I got hung up on last time. So I'm like afraid of it. And it's super necessary because it's when you meet one of the characters, but I just don't want to do it, and I have to. Because I know there's no way that I'm gonna be able to start my day doing that one and want to soldier through. It has to like be the chapter I end on before I go to bed so that I can write the rest of the book after. But when I'm done with this, I'll have written 7 chapters in one day, which is totally insane. They're very short, as you can imagine, but oh my God, the most I'd ever done at this point was 1 chapter in a day. I'd never done more than 1 chapter. Look at me go now, Mom. I I'm sleepy. And those are the ones I know that I'm gonna have to go back and tighten, because obviously it's a problem if I like dreaded writing it so much. That means that something is wrong with it, or for whatever reason. And I think one of the motivators that kind of kept me going in all of this was I really wanted to embrace the idea and honestly the belief that it's so important to have fun. You know, I'm doing this because I want to. I want to write this book. And if I ever wasn't having fun with the writing, like, it's one thing to just like dread how much work is ahead of you, but if the writing itself isn't fun, and not just because you're rusty and it's clunky, but just you're not enjoying doing it, that's something that needs to be addressed. And so sometimes I understood that I was just struggling to get through it just because, like I said, it was work and I wanted to like watch TV or something and just like relax and not have to work after working a full job all day. And so I would like do little tricks to have fun. Like, one thing I did, I would name my chapters really weird, goofy names. One of the things I'm doing in this draft, I'm having so much fun with the chapter names, and they make no sense. I wouldn't say they make no sense, but there's no like rhyme or reason to it. Like, sometimes I pick like a song title. Like, I have one chapter just called Luck, one called Unblind. The next one is The Truth's Superb Surprise. Like, what does that mean? I don't know. I'm having fun with it, and I kind of want to keep them for now until I decide on like their real titles, because I do like them titled. I think it's really, I don't know, I like that it gives it like a flavor throughout the whole chapter. But I'm gonna have to leave a note to my advisor and just be like, please pay no attention to the titles. They will change. I know it sounds silly, but it's just like, it was just a way for me to write something and to look at my book as like a fun thing and not something to take too seriously. And I think it was such an easy trick, but it really set a good tone for me in this draft. Another way I got through the really like dreadful, don't want to do this times, I realized I just didn't like working alone, like being lonely. And so I started watching writing sprints, and this is like a huge foot and mouth moment because I definitely have a blog. I don't even want to link it because it's like embarrassing now because I'm like eating my words, where I said I didn't enjoy writing sprints. And it turns out that's not true. That day I probably just didn't want to write, because I found so much joy in writing sprints. Specifically, very specifically, Megan LaCroix and Kim Chance's writing sprint group on Facebook. I joined it like years ago, but I never really participated in the live writing sprints. And I like watched one while I was writing, and I'm like, oh my God, this is great. Like, doing these 20-minute bursts and just like having somebody there who's like working alongside you, and just makes you feel like you're not the only person like sitting in your office like writing while everyone else is having fun. I mean, how much fun are we all really having? It's a pandemic. But it just was nice to like have that, like someone's working alongside you. And I actually like went back to the beginning and I wrote it in my Instagram post. I went back to the beginning, which was like 2000, I think it was 2018 is when they started it. I have to laugh. I came on here and I'm watching like all the old sprints. Just, you know, to help me feel not so alone. Wow, I look crazy. We're going with it. And all of a sudden I look and I was like, oh my God, did I accidentally just type in this really old chat? This is like from literally 2.5 years ago, July 2018. And no, apparently I actually joined this live sprint then. I don't remember ever really commenting on it, but I guess, you know, it was 2.5 years ago. But it was so weird to see somebody comment like as me pop up. I was like, what? Did I accidentally just type that from my story? It's Haley from the past. So weird to see. Actually, you know what the sad thing is? What I was writing there was definitely the same story. I've been working on this forever, oh my God. That is why, as stressful as all of this is, trying to finish it as quickly as I am, I need to finish it as quickly as I am. Quickly. There. I just liked my own comment. From the future. And if anyone's curious, I finished my book, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I finished it on April 25th, 2019. That was the writing sprint I finished on, so I watched like over a year's worth of writing sprints. like weekly writing sprints. So you can do the math on how many hours I worked in January and February. Probably not that much. I didn't just watch them, like I did. Sometimes I didn't watch them, but anyway. I also I listened to like, a lot of people love these, but like the ASMR rooms on YouTube, I'm gonna link them below. And I listened to all of her Harry Potter ones, and I like would pick like whatever scene I was working on. Like if I was working on a scene that took place near woods, I would like listen to the Forbidden Forest one or something like that. That just really got me in the moment, because that is something I struggle with. Like I have to, or I am heavily influenced by like the weather outside in my real world, and like my book has changed seasons, like when it takes place so many times, simply based on the fact that whatever season it is that I'm working on it, that's the season I feel most inspired to write. And so for this, I like had to put my foot down. I couldn't keep changing the season. I'm like, okay, this is starting in, it starts like in the start of the school year. No matter when I'm working on it, like I worked on this in January, February, and so it was winter, but I was like, it has to take place then. So listening to like those ASMR rooms and like watching scenes of like certain seasons really kind of set me there and finally stopped the madness of me changing the time of year so many times. The biggest struggle I had with writing every day was stamina. And I'm not talking about like fatigue, like feeling tired, because actually that's something I did that's very controversial in the writing world. I got enough sleep and I didn't sacrifice sleep. I know, I'm a disgusting writer. I cannot call myself a writer if I don't lose sleep, but I did. I like just knowing myself, like sleep is those like that one thing that if I get under 8 hours or so, I become a zombie and I feel different mentally. And so I've just learned about myself, it's really important for me to get enough sleep. Actually, fun fact, I actually learned this because I am currently in the middle of a sleep study, a 9-month-long sleep study. Like not for me, but just like I'm part of research. It's so random, I know. But it's really got me thinking more about sleep, and like part of the research we have to kind of notice our moods when we get certain like hours of sleep. And that's when I realized like I feel like a different person when I make sure I've gotten enough sleep. So this year, especially since the start of this study, which was like in September, I've really focused on making sure that I am getting enough sleep. And I mean, I'll be honest, like January, I did have a lot of like 6-hour nights, but overall, if I was really tired, I would go to bed. I have so much that I should be getting done tonight, but something about midnight, I cannot work past anymore. Like, it's like the clock turns midnight and my eyes just, I guess in this pandemic, I've slowly developed a schedule after all. So, but the stamina that I'm talking about was creative stamina. When you write for like 6 hours a night, your brain shuts down. Like I would just hit this creative wall and I would like tell myself like, you know what, I'm gonna pull an all-nighter tonight. I am just gonna get it done and then I'll sleep in tomorrow or I'll go to bed early the next night. But like I would just hit this wall and I couldn't write. I think I could have pushed through it, but just I could tell the writing just was getting bad and disinterested. And obviously like writing this draft, like my thesis is going to be published in like the archives, and so even though this isn't going to be my like published draft, like out in the world published, it is something I'm taking seriously and I want to make sure I'm doing a somewhat decent job, and I don't want to just waste words that are gonna end up being trashed. And so when I would hit this creative wall, I would just have to like call it a night. I'm getting to that point, like it happens, it's been happening every night, where I just reach a certain word count and I just do not want to do it anymore. I mean, you do the same thing for hours every day, multiple days in a row, and it's like, I want to mix it up a little bit. I think the problem is I just came from a really dialogue heavy chapter. Normally I love dialogue, but since I'm rewriting it, it doesn't feel as fresh as when I first wrote it. Can you just tell I'm like really over this story right now? I'm like so over it and I have so much to go. I don't even want to say how much I have to go. I don't even know why I turned on the camera. I'm stalling. Literally the only thing getting me through, the only thing, is visualize writing the end tonight. That is the only thing at this point powering me through. Being able to write the end, turning it in, being done. That feels good. But I have to rally myself up. Otherwise, if I'm like in a bored and down, I'm not down, I'm just bored. I want to do something different. I've been doing the same thing for like 9 hours right now. And so I just want to do something else, but I can't. I have to do this. Let's go. But overall, I ended January feeling great. I didn't hit my deadline, but I knew I was so close, or at least I thought I was so close. Well, you heard it here, folks. First, see, I can't even talk. I'm gonna take my hair down for this. I'm tired of looking like a bald baby all the time. I'm on track to hit 10,000 words today, which is mind-boggling to me. Only in that I never thought I'd actually be able to do it. I'm pretty impressed with myself. Actually, that's not true. I always thought I could do it. I just never did do it. But I just realized, like, just being realistic, there is absolutely no way I can finish tonight. Like, there's no chance. Even if I crank out like 4 chapters an hour, like a chapter every 15 minutes, it just won't happen. And of course, then each chapter would be like a paragraph. I really wanted to say I did it. It's so funny, even now, I feel like I can't be disappointed because I have finally started doing it and feeling happy with my writing. And you know, I've been averaging 3,000 words written per day and feeling good about those 3,000 words every day. And that has not been my situation. I just feel like I finally found my groove, and it's sad that I have to compromise it and rush it and make my writing suck just to, I mean, what? Like, I don't want anyone to waste their time grading something or critiquing something that I know is bad. That just doesn't make sense. I say it sucks as if I didn't have control of the situation. I 100% had control of the situation. I blame myself 100%. But what I'm saying is, that's just the reality of where I'm at right now. And so I think what I'm gonna do, as much as I hate to do it just because, I don't know, I told a lot of people about this deadline. I feel like I'm just gonna turn in what I have, which is like 50,000 words, and at least let her start to read it. And then hopefully by the end of the week, I'll have the rest of it. I mean, I know I'll have it by the end of the week, especially if I keep doing 3,000 words a day. And hopefully it'll be good. I feel like this way, there's no way it will be good if I keep going. So I hate this. I hate being such a broken record. All right, one more week. It's 2:30 a.m. now. I think what I'm gonna do, my plan is to just do as much as I possibly can. I'm watching one more sprint, and then just kind of take what I have and send it. And hopefully she doesn't get mad at me. I feel bad because she's gonna think I'm like one of those terrible students, and it's like I have never ever turned something in late in my life, and yet twice now I have turned in less than I said I was gonna turn into her. Which, I mean, I'm just laughing because it's just like, of course, like the very last class I have, you know, thesis isn't really class, but the very last thing I have, this is when I break my perfect student streak. But writing a book is just a lot harder than I like give it credit for. So, and I know I've written a book before, but this time I'm trying to write a good book, and there's a difference. But then right when I was confident I was just a day or two away from writing the end, something happened and everything in my life came to a screeching halt. This is the least flattering hairstyle I could possibly have. How does my husband still love me when I wear my hair like this all the time?